I'm Daniel, the past life regressionist, and it's time to begin.
Lift off and the clock has started.
This is Timeless Spirituality. Enjoy each and every time.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Timeless Spirituality. This is our first yearly prediction episode, that being for 2024. And that's kind of crazy and ironic because as I'm recording this little segment tonight on November 27th, 2023, hold for drum roll. Today is the second birthday for Timeless Spirituality. Yay! So I just want to thank everyone who has been here on this journey with me and who has supported the show throughout the last 2 years. It means so much to me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart just for being here and for all of your support. And I am so excited for what is to come on the show. I know I'm kind of been teasing it a little bit, but who does it take a little pivot in season 4? And season 5, I am already recording some episodes for season 5, and I'm taking a different direction for that one too. I'm going for it, guys, and just thank you for everything, and I hope you guys enjoy the first part of this 2-part episode. This is an episode that I've been looking forward to doing for a while, and I am really happy that I had my friend NJ on, who is an astrologer, to come on and share her predictions. And yeah, guys, we had fun with this one and it's cool. So I'm really excited for the future of the show. And again, thank you for being on this journey with me. And a big thank you from Timeless Spirituality. So with all of that said, if you would like to book a regression with me to discover who, when, and where you have been throughout time, you can reach me on Instagram at The Past Life Regressionist or my website, thepastliferegressionist.com. And now, it's time to begin. NJ, welcome to the podcast. I'm super duper excited for this one today because I think it's going to be so cool. I think we're going to geek out. I'm just so excited. And anyways, how are you doing today?
Daniel, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on. I guess we can all agree the astrology the last few months, it's been going. It's been a lot. It's been going, but we're getting through it. So I guess I'll let you take it away from here.
Well, thank you. So just for reference for everyone, since this is going to be astrological predictions for 2024, I just want to make it clear that we are recording this on Friday, November 17th, 2023. So you heard it here. Friday, November 17th, 2023.
Heard it here.
We're going to be working from the events that have unfolded up until this time, and then NJ is going to proceed with her predictions for 2024. So NJ, are you ready for the first question? I'm so excited. I'm so giddy and excited for this one because it's just like, it's information. I'm just so excited. Okay. Are you ready for the first question?
I am.
What is your favorite song about time and why?
I mean, I don't know why. I'm just gonna go with Madonna and Hung Up just because, like, she's fun. She's my birth chart twin, and 2, I really love that song. It's like time goes by fast. I'm gonna be honest with you, that was a hard question. I had to just kind of wing that one. Great question though. Great warm up.
I'm gonna put my hands down. I'm not gonna guess the year because I don't know the song. So
every little thing that you say around, and then the beginning's like time goes by so slowly, so slow. Well, that's actually the middle, but whatever. You know, it's Madonna. You should look it up. It's great. I think it was from like early 2000s. I can't remember the year. I should probably know that.
It's okay. I didn't get it either. So You're good.
Oh.
Are you ready for the next question?
I am.
What do you believe in?
Wow. What do you mean? Like, what's my worldview? Believe in? Oh God, that's a good question. I guess a better way of, I guess I could explain it is I have a very evolutionary approach to everything, whether it's my social scientific approach or astrology. I believe that everything is ever evolving and that we have to approach things on a case by case basis. And that includes our, on a microcosmic level, macrocosmic, from our personal interactions to the way I look at these predictions, for example. So I would say that's a big way of explaining. I could go on, but I'm not sure if we have time because I believe in a lot of things, if you know what I mean. But if we're talking about my general worldview, I think that's that having a very constructive, socially constructive worldview. That's another guess way I could describe it.
Awesome. I think you already painted the picture for everyone of what's to come.
Okay. Thank you.
You ready for probably the most difficult question I'm going to ask you today?
Okay.
Who is NJ?
Who is NJ? Like, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm an astrologer, evolutionary astrologer, a social scientist, astro-cartographer, love working with maps, love working with place. I am a Leo sun, Leo moon, Virgo rising. So I guess you could say I am a sunny Mercurial. And I went to school.
An astrology joke.
Yeah. Love it. Thank you.
Spit take if I had water in my mouth.
I wish we had one of those buttons that, like, I don't know, like in the early 90s when, sitcoms, like they would just like say laugh and everyone would just laugh, even if it was, like I wish we had one of those buttons, but we don't. That would have been perfect for that.
Yeah. Oh.
But yeah, I guess about me. Was that good enough? Or do I need to answer more?
I don't know. I cut you off because of your joke. Just like I couldn't.
Oh. Like what else was I saying? Oh yeah. I guess it's probably worth the noting that I studied these things in college. So I went to school. So I first started with my education degree. Went for social science education, right? 2 bachelor science degrees, and did actual field experience, all that good stuff. And then I decided I didn't want to teach anymore. System's a mess. And that led me down the road of getting my degree in global studies. It's a social research degree. And I have a focus particularly in geography, GIS, geopolitics, as well as I have a minor in history. So that's my educational background for what it's worth. I'm not perfect. I'm not the most all-knowing, but I do in fact like these things enough to at least explore them and make good guesses, I guess, or try it to. We're going to find out. And I guess anything else I love. Oh yeah, I can do anything from medical astrology. I love herbs, outside, outdoors, gardening, pop culture, studying, learning. So I guess that's enough about me.
So basically, you've pigeonholed yourself.
Of what?
You've pigeonholed yourself, basically.
What's that mean?
That you've kept yourself in one little corner, and you don't experiment with anything outside of your one little corner.
I don't know if I could agree with that. I'm a little bit of like I call myself, because I got my Mercury on my ascendant there. As a matter of fact, I had to sit there and be very specific about the reason I went that route is because I like so many things. Like I can talk about everything underneath the sun. So I had to eventually pick something. And so having Mercury on that ascendant, that's anyone who's mutable or at least a Mercury ruled chart, that feeling all too well of liking and wanting to learn everything.
So for the last time that I'll be a jackass today, what part
love the jackasses.
What part of your chart dictates a lack of picking up on sarcasm?
Oh, I definitely pick up on the sarcasm.
So you didn't pick up on the sarcasm, me saying that you pigeonhole yourself?
I mean, it was sarcasm, but I just wanted to totally get an opportunity to introduce myself because I love bragging about being ruled by Mercury. I can pick up on the sarcasm, though.
Okay, so it's going to be one of those episodes. Even better. Anyways, as we move it along, I just want to tell everyone why I wanted to have NJ on for the predictions. Now, while I know many talented astrologers who are very accurate with their predictions, I feel that it's important to understand the nuance behind predictions, especially when being presented to an audience. So, well, let me expand upon that, because I think that's what's missing from our society is nuance. Everyone gets little sound bites or headlines, and then they make up their opinions off of that little thing without nuance, without understanding why it is that they have formulated that opinion. So when it comes to astrological predictions, I feel it's the same importance should be placed upon understanding the events behind the predictions, because if history has taught us anything, it's that there's a snowball effect, that even though World War II officially started in, I believe, 1939, its roots go much further back. Same thing with World War I. Its roots go much further back, even though the initial declaration may have been at a specific point, there is nuance that led up to everything. So that's why I feel it's so important to have someone on who understands the nuance behind the astrology. So therefore, there's value in understanding that A plus B will lead to C. It's not just a mathematical formulation. It's that if this happens and you put them together, this happens. So that goes beyond just working with the planetary energies. It's seeing how everything unfolds in real time in society. So with that said, everyone get ready for a super nuanced astrological prediction episode for 2024. NJ, take it away. How is it that you came up with these predictions? Beyond understanding the cookbook, how did you come up with your predictions?
All right. Yeah. So a lot of it is self-research. So, and I'm not saying that I don't consult second opinions with astrologers, because I'm very engaged, even if I'm not good at showing it online, that I'm constantly absorbing these opinions and stuff and taking them into account. But ultimately what I do is I kind of cross over timelines. What I mean by that is I look at major transits, major outer planet, and I guess whether it's Jupiter, Saturn, the North Node, South Node, all these things have patterns and some of the most very distinct themes that are pretty consistent throughout history. And so what I do is just in a general sense of the year, I kind of take what those big things are and then I look at where all those things were last. It's a very common theme with astrologers, right? Nothing too special there. I think the difference is to me is like, I do absolutely, there is a very intuitive side for me as well. I'm not going to reject that at all. Because as I'm going through this information, perhaps the way some other people would, I actually get weird insights and downloads. I consider myself claircognizant. I get weird, I guess, unusual insights that don't necessarily come from the research I'm doing. And it's just that I'm able to use research to further validate, or in the very least, actualize, or what's the word, a better word I'm looking for, understand it, right? And or articulate, whatever it might be. So I look at those things, and we can get to that in a minute, how that's all translating here. And you can even look at how this is reflected. For example, the way people talk about events in history right now, everyone's like, why do things feel like we're entering like another revolutionary war? Why do we feel like we're entering another civil war? Why does it feel like we're doing, like, you'll hear those headlines, like, are we entering another blah, blah, blah? Like, and then 9 times out of 10, there's going to be something astrological that's a little down to the detail. That's like, for example, like, let's see, where do we want to start with this one, right? Like Pluto and Aquarius. Pluto and Aquarius in March 2024 finally enters, even though it moved into Aquarius earlier in 2023, it stationed retrograde and then moved back into Capricorn, back to those 27 degrees Capricorn. It just stationed direct as of, I'm bumbling on dates right now, but it was like about a month ago. So now as we are moving forward and Pluto goes into Aquarius, we are actually entering a new era. And as we noticed when Pluto entered Capricorn back in 2008, everyone references 2008 as like this year when everything changed in society, right? And I guess I'll start off on this note to help us understand the era we're entering, and then we'll get down to like specific
really quick
predictions.
Since we're going to go the nuanced direction here, let's talk about 2008 a little bit. First, in the United States, you have the election of Barack Obama. So first president of color. You have the financial crisis, which I believe officially happened, if I'm not mistaken, in November of 2008, even though the roots, again, were showing much earlier than that. But it was in November when everything really came crashing down. And with the Obama election, you had a feeling of change in the air and a different kind of revolution. But there were cracks that were also starting to emerge in 2008. I guess we can put it that way. So am I missing anything from 2008? I mean, and Iron Man came out in 2008. I believe that was in May of 2008. So that kind of got the whole MCU going. So I mean, pop culture does factor in.
Oh, definitely. Oh, 1000%. And as well, I know Neptune and Jupiter have a big theme with that too, but Pluto just overall represents what's governing our lives. And that can be power structures like government. And one way I describe it's interesting you talked about Pluto and Capricorn, like, all these cracks started unfolding is because the natal USA chart, which was drafted for Independence Day, July 4th, 1776, Again, a lot of that can be debated depending on what astrologer you ask. Most agree on that date though, because there's something for you. But going back to that, the last time, like what we call a
Sorry,
Pluto
can I
return.
bring up one more? Sorry to cut you off one more time.
Sure.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So I just got really excited that you brought up the Revolutionary War there. Not that those types of things make me excited, but because I'm so excited to talk about the nuance of things here. The Declaration of Independence was signed July 4th, 1776. But if you look at history books, the quote unquote official start of the Revolutionary War would be in 1775. But there were events prior to 1775 that contributed to the Revolutionary War. I mean, I'm sure it could be argued that those events go back 50 plus years, but I believe the Boston Tea Party happened in 1773 or 1774, which was a huge contributing factor. So even though it hadn't officially started, there were events that shaped that future moment. So I really want to hammer this home to everyone, how important nuances and understanding patterns in what creates an event, and that it doesn't just come out of anywhere, because this relates to your life as an individual as well. So if you can understand the creation, then you can understand where it's going. So, okay, I may do a little more of those jump ins, but I'm just so excited. This is so fun. Okay. This is like, I'm so giddy right now. I'm like a kid in a candy shop because I'm like talking about history.
No, the jumps
and
are helpful. Thank you.
The jokes.
Because I'm like a kid in a candy shop, and I'm like, I'm also, again, mercurial over here. I got all this information just like spinning like on a wheel over here. I'm like, I can't wait to share. I can't wait to talk about it. I can't wait for you to tell me more and teach me stuff. And so you pretty much nailed it all right there with Pluto and Capricorn. And another way to kind of, I guess what we will say, summarize Pluto and Capricorn is because we have the USA natal Pluto is at 27 degrees Capricorn, I believe. That means that once it hit 27 degrees Capricorn, we have undergoing with a nation. It's every nation is going to experience this, and this is the USA's, and it's the Pluto return. And the Pluto return is because, you hear the research say, I swear, Google this, look it up, anyone who doesn't believe me, that historians estimate that an empire lasts on average 250 years, which is a little uncanny because Pluto stays returns to a specific zodiac sign about every 248 years. So that when it comes back to a sign that there is going to be paradigmatic change. And when we saw that back in 2008, it happened, but a lot of people lost hope back in 2008, not because there shouldn't be hope, but when you take historical context into consideration. And we saw this happen back in the Revolutionary War, because keeping in mind the Pluto and Aquarius era was not just the American Revolution, it was the era of people's revolutions. It was global. You had the Haitian Revolution, you had the French Revolution, a huge one. That one started in 1789, I believe. And so that was the middle of the Pluto and Aquarius era, because it left Aquarius in 1799. So Pluto and Aquarius is like by the people, for the people, because that's what Aquarius represents in astrology. So back to Pluto and Capricorn before I get to that, is that Pluto and Capricorn, I like to think of it as the let them eat cake era. So you saw that with like Marie Antoinette. I don't know if people say if she actually said that or not, whatever. But yeah, that's a big one there. And so you saw with the massive accumulation of wealth that ended up going towards select few. And so people think that these people who have the select few who have funneled all this wealth to themselves, they think that now it's all their game. Well, Pluto and Aquarius is also, because Aquarius is a sign of innovation, and that Pluto starts, I think, moves into Aquarius in March 2024, as I said. And so I would say that's the area of fuck around where you're going to find out, right? Because as that all happened, that's when revolutions broke out. People got fed up, and you're already kind of feeling that in the air right now. And so when we understand Pluto and Capricorn, a lot of people, it's about temptation, right? You think of the devil that's associated with Capricorn, and in that general sense, right? So that being said, a lot of the rich got way too tempted to just want to funnel it all. People are like, hey, you can't do this. And they just simply didn't care. You saw the same in Versailles back in the French Revolution, where, again, they're not sure if she actually said, let them eat cake. I'm going to say she did it though. It just sounds, it adds to the narrative. I like it. But regardless, it's because they ate a lot of bread and pastries, and they just pretty much, they just over consumed to absolutely no end and just hoarded all of it. And so basically what happened, everyone was without, and everyone just said, what the hell we got to lose? And then they just started a revolution. And not to glorify that revolution, it was actually really brutal and a lot more complex than that. But the point is that we are thankfully in a much different era where it's not going to fold exactly like that. I actually, that's going to bring me to another prediction shortly. I'll reassure people it's not going to be as reckless and violent. I mean, you're going to have violence because that unfortunately is a function of society. The goal is to minimize it from a social, like anyone who studies social science, they know that. It's an ideal. We wish that we could just get rid of it completely, but we have to be realistic here. But thankfully, when we compare it to history, it's not going to be near as bad as people. So there's really no need to get scared here. It's kind of expected in a sense. But when we're wanting to get into we're getting to Pluto and Aquarius era in combination with all these other transits going on. What else do we want to talk about, Daniel? You want to add something and kind of butt in real quick?
Yeah, I mean, a couple little things. One, I think it's important to also point out this may not necessarily signal the end of mega wealth, because because I think that's the impression, at least from what I see out there in social media sphere, it's that this is all going away. But if you look in a historical context, a little while after the American Revolution and revolutions around the world, you had the Gilded Age, where it was still these mega monopolies, which basically controlled every aspect of American society, at the very least. So, I mean, they controlled politics, the economy, education. So I think when looking at these things, for everyone who, is going to shape an opinion based off of what you're saying, because I think that there's confirmation bias that can be taken in the things that you're not saying. So it's someone linking something up of, okay, well, I heard NJ talk about this, so I'm gonna relate it to over here. I think it's very important to look at the world through a very pragmatic lens. I personally consider myself to be a pragmatic idealist, which is I can envision a better tomorrow and what that world may look like, but I'm pragmatic in the respect that we live in the real world, and there are real world events to contend with and systems in place where we are not just going to wake up in a new world tomorrow. These things take time, and they're just bigger systems at play. So I just would advise everyone to take all of that into consideration and be very pragmatic and learn your history. I don't care if you think that history was written by the victors, which mostly is, but it is. But it's still important to understand the history at play, because you can look in a history book and see, I'm going to focus on American history right now. If a history book says that our first president was George Washington, our first president was George Washington, and so on and so forth. Like, there are points of history which are 150,000% factual. So even if it was written by because I think that that's also the view out there in the world, is that if it's written by the victors, as I put it in quotes, that you can't trust any of it. It's about using that pragmatic lens to say, what part can I trust, and why would they lie about who was the first president in the United States? So while being distrustful of systems, not all systems are inherently malicious to the core.
Right.
So when you're revolting against, understand that these are not absolutes.
And I'm thankful to say the natal Neptune in Virgo, which has a lot to do, those things are matters. There's a few things different on the outer planets that are happening during our Pluto return that's going to kind of give us a new turning of a leaf. That's good news. But I love that what you mentioned a minute ago about those realistic expectations, because Pluto and Aquarius, it's not all good necessarily. Like, granted, it's going to be very, I guess, what you would call vindicating in the sense of by the people for the people, right? But there's a term in sociology, we call it anomy. And anomy represents a state of normlessness, which represents like kind of everyone's a little too free. And it sounds crazy. People think what does it mean to be too, because Aquarius is a sign of freedom, but it gets taken out of context. Really what it is that anomy is a time where it's due to rapid technological, economic, political, social, cultural changes, environmental changes, a lot of these other things that factor into the world having to be re-understood in a way of life getting dramatically changed. And those are often characteristic of the Pluto and Aquarius era. So anomie is a really difficult to navigate. It's a very difficult social situation where I would argue we are already in it. But Pluto and Aquarius is when those things are in. The good news, again, is that a lot of social awareness gets cultivated around this time. It takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of, unfortunately, not the best of things to happen. The American Revolution, it wasn't a bad time to be alive, but it was, let's not over romanticize it either. Like, people were so divided. And again, we had Neptune in Virgo, where that sense of what your labor and capital was kind of determined how these interactions in the cultural, like, it shaped much of the culture and those expectations. And today we have Neptune in Pisces, we got Saturn in Pisces, which is pretty nice. That's a whole other conversation at the conjunction. I think they're going to make it at 1 degree airy, but regardless, there's other transits that are also worth considering there that are slightly different from what this time period was. But regardless, we're actually going to have better transits that are going to help us overcome that really weird period of what we call anomie. And by pretty much, I want to say this, it's like pretty much a period of just, it goes beyond plateau or stagnation. It goes back to where just everything is in disarray and no one knows what to do about it. So it just stays like that. Like, there's like almost a lack of order, and in a way that we don't like. And the good news is that that's a time period where we start taking that more seriously, or we take that leadership more seriously. But then when we get to the more specific predictions, we'll get to that in a minute, and how these elections are going to turn out and how the society is going to rebuild moving forward. But it's also worth noting, we also had the Jupiter Saturn and the Saturn Pluto conjunction that happened in 2020. And then Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. I can't remember if both happened close to the Protestant Reformation. I know for a fact the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, or no, Jupiter-Saturn, I believe. But regardless, there was a lot of that in there with that too. So there's a lot of things that we pieced together there. And that brings me to this. I think it's going to be much better. I think we can have a sigh of relief. Just, again, have realistic expectations. And because maybe I'm just trying to be the natural optimist here, but I think we have what it takes to be, since
I'll be
we
the
are
cynic
largely
today, so it's okay.
You're like, oh, I'll keep it balanced with the cynicism. All good. Okay, I love it. But we want to get more specific on predictions. What you want to hear first? What do we want to get into now that we know we're Pluto and Aquarius, and that kind of sets the backdrop of a lot of these things that are going to happen. And I guess I should add this comment before I let you speak about World War III, because I know a lot of people are terrified about that. And I have some good reassurance to give you. So I do think global conflict's going to happen. Keep in mind the American Revolution, everything between was global conflict, because you had everyone kind of fighting each other's revolutions. It was really weird. I think that's going to be more of the dynamic than another World War III. Both the world wars happened during the Pluto and Leo era, which is opposite of the Pluto and Aquarius era. And that was like nuclear power is actually associated with Leo. People don't know that. And so that was in its exaltation in Leo. So that was just a volatile, like when Pluto's extreme, it goes extreme with Leo. Whereas in Aquarius, it's kind of it goes low, I guess you could say, for metaphorically speaking. I'm kind of visualizing it in my head. But yeah, it's worth noting that. So I don't think the way we think World War III has happened is probably not going to happen that way. So it should be a little sigh of relief. Again, I'm not saying we're not going to get involved in war. U.S. is literally hungry for war right now. Oh my God, they want war so bad. But that brings me to this. I think there's going to be internal revolutions in a lot of places versus a world war. Like, I think people are going to get so pissed at that prospect that they're going to start revolutions before they let that happen. You're kind of already seeing it. And for others, it'll be a fight for independence, which is, you're already seeing that too. So those are going to be the big underlying themes that serve as this backdrop. And so now I'll let you take it away. I wanted to bring that up there because I think a lot of people needed to hear that.
I want to ask you a question with regards to the origins. So as we're recording this still on November 17th, 2023, a world war has not broken out. But I still feel like you're one of those people where you don't need 20/20 vision in order to look.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask you, what do you think the first shot is, or was, for that matter? I have an idea of what it is, where when we look back in the history books, because in moments like this, what I do is I imagine that I am a 10-year-old sitting in a history class. And I'm learning about history in the future. So I imagine a teacher up front teaching about these events as if they happened in the past, so I can understand them through the lens of reflection. So when you look back at World War I, and I'm not as familiar with World War I, but it's pretty universally agreed that what really kicked it off was the assassination of Ferdinand, correct?
Mhm.
With the one shot. And World War II would have been with the invasion of, I don't think was it Poland?
Mhm.
With the invasion of Poland. Even though Hitler and Germany had been amassing more of an empire throughout the 1930s, that was still what history books refer to as the commencement of the war, was in 1939 with the when Germany invaded Poland. So when we are looking back on this time in history, do you think that that moment has happened yet? Or do you think it's yet to come? What we will define as the beginning of World War III?
That is a dang good question. Because, I mean, we can look at what happened on October 7th, and I think that was one of the shots fired around the world. I guess you heard around the world, you could say. But I'm very skeptical to say that was the spark of this, because I have a few, I've got a few possibilities that I'm looking at here for 2024. And if we're talking about that shot around the world, oh God, people are not ready to hear this one, or some people are actually. It's either going to be Donald Trump, or it's going to be a surprise attack on perhaps I'm worried it's going to be the United States, and I'll actually explain why that is in a minute. And again, it could be an attempt. It could also be an attempt. It doesn't have to be successful. It could be just the sheer attempt of trying to. But my first theory, and I'm just getting creative here. I mean, if we want to get into the because I don't think it's going to start until we get into like 2024, 2025. We're going to go ahead and notice developments in Capricorn season, because we're going to have like a lot of T-squares with that Pluto and Capricorn and the nodes in Aries and Libra. So a lot of those developments are going to really intensify from what we saw with October 7th. But it's either going to be Trump, and I think it could be likely Iran, because Iran has been talking all day about wanting to assassinate Trump. I'm not kidding you.
And not that you're supporting this at all. Just want to make that clear.
No, I'm saying when we observe what's been going, I mean, they literally, before the footage got taken, I mean, again, maybe people aren't ready to hear this, but this is exactly what we observed. We all saw it. Let's not be so too about it. Iran's like, yes, we hate Trump. Like, they've literally made little videos that portray the whole thing. And I have a feeling, and this goes back to another prediction of mine, that either A, Trump, by whatever, gets reelected. And I know people are not ready to hear that, and I'm not saying I don't want that at all. I've checked a few patterns in history, so we'll get to that in a little bit. We can actually talk more of that in a minute. But yeah, it goes back to the question of fire around the world. It's either going to be something relating to that, or it's going to be, when I look at what happened on October 7th, that's why I've been urging people to have a lot of empathy in these cases, because that's not the first. It's not going to be the first. Either A, what I said is going to happen, it's going to be something of that nature, or B, it's going to be some type of targeted surprise attack. It could be on a U.S. military base. It could be something of that nature. Regardless, it's going to have a huge implication. And that's why and I'll get into the astrology of that in a little bit. I'll let you take it away and add your 2 cents in that. But that is what I think this shot around the world is going to be.
So I will say that I am basing my assessment off of the astrology, solely off the astrology right now. I believe when we look back on history, the official start of World War III will have been, I believe it was February 22nd, 2022. I believe that was the day. February 21st or 22nd.
The invasion of Ukraine is also a new way of looking at it.
But I believe that was also the first hit of the U.S. Pluto return that day.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And the fact that, when we hear, like, that's what's so interesting about this situation. It's not going to look exactly like either of the world wars. It's going to be like this weird combination of all the above. It's going to be that's why I think a lot of people are getting very oversimplified in their assessments. Understandable.
Yep.
But a lot of the way these charts are lining up.
See people, the nuance is important.
Yes, it really is.
Well, I mean, just one thing I want to add in there, because I think, as you were saying, it's like everyone else is going to be fighting each other's wars. And still, right now, NJ and I, we are talking the nuance and facts. This is not us imposing our beliefs on the situation. I'm not going to sit here and tell you whether I think these things are right or wrong. It's just looking and evaluating in what I believe to be the most impartial and objective way that I possibly can. And that being that the U.S. was supplying billions of dollars and weapons to Ukraine. But there was some pushback on Israel at the time when all this started, because Israel had said, no, we will not provide weapons. Because their rationale at the time was, if we provide you weapons, we may not have enough to defend ourselves. So it's like if you start to see the threads there, again, I'm not advocating on anyone's behalf right now, but there's some forward thinking there. Do you know what I mean? Of understanding what's going on at the time and what can happen in the future. But to look at that, you have to look at the past. So I think, because I do agree with you, NJ, that this is going to look much more unconventional than the previous two world wars. And I mean, it's the Einstein quote that always terrifies me, where he said, and Einstein passed away in 1955, but the quote was, I mean, maybe not verbatim, I don't know what weapons will be used to fight in World War III, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones. So that quote in and of itself is terrifying to me, but I am hoping for a more unconventional, look, no, I take that back. I'm hoping for nothing. Like, I'm hoping there's no war, but I would prefer that to nuclear annihilation. So I guess that's my long-winded way of saying that I found it interesting that morning when I turned on the news in February of 2022. Let me tell a little story really quick. At the time, I had my Saturn squaring my sun. So I decided to take a trip at that time. I was really on burnout. And a couple months before, I looked at my schedule and I said, where do I have a little break? And I looked ahead 3 months because I looked at my transits and I saw, okay, I have a break around that time with the Saturn Sun square. And I understood that, look, while I'm not a slave to the planets, I do believe in their energies. So something is going to slow me down at that time. So I may as well just be proactive about it and make that slowdown be a nice little trip where I rent a cabin in the mountains for a couple days. And also that feeling of, okay, well, it's also going to coincide with the time of the U.S. Pluto return. I don't think anything significant is going to happen where the world is going to come to an end that day. So therefore, I can go on a little trip and be able to come back home a couple days later. But it was the feeling of, I believe in the energy of the planets. I don't know what's going to happen, but I believe that something is going to happen. And when I turned on the news that morning, that's what it felt like to me. Is even though we weren't involved, I looked at the history of the United States and seeing that I believe one of our big Achilles heels is foreign interventions and how that could potentially lead to the downfall of an empire. And just as I think you had brought up, if you look at history, what was it you said, that most empires last for about 250 years?
That's just like what generally a lot of historians say, more or less, like the on average. But I mean, that, of course, that could be debated.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Roman Empire lasted longer than 250 years, but did it fall on one of its Pluto returns? I actually don't know that, but
I actually have not explored that either. I guess that's a good topic to, because everyone loves the Roman Empire now, apparently. So yeah, that's actually a good question to explore. Maybe that's another podcast topic. But yeah, right now I can't answer that.
So I guess to sum it up before NJ gets back to these amazing predictions that I'm so excited that we're doing, I guess this is almost, do I dare say, for vanity. My assessment is we look back on the history books in 100 years. So that's the thing. Maybe we're never going to know the outcome of this, that the official start of World War III will have been when Russia invaded Ukraine. And you believe that it's something to come in either late 2024, 2025, correct?
Well, I guess,
Or that this could have been
it's,
it, or October
well,
7th in Israel.
it's worth noting that, when we're us as Americans, like, you got to think a lot of the transits I'm looking at, you that's a solid point, because a lot of these things started in Europe, and these things started, that timeline is already very reminiscent of what we saw back then. And then the US got pulled in later on. And so, which brings me back to that Jupiter Uranus conjunction that's happening at 21 degrees Taurus. And that is happening, okay, April 20th, 2024. And so, this last time this happened was in May 1942. And 6 months later, in December, give or take, I'm not good at mental math. In December 1941, December 7th, 1941, we had the Pearl Harbor attack. And that was considered an enemy attack. And I mean, and the reason I'm worried is not just that, because when we had 9/11, it was a Jupiter North Node conjunction. It was in Cancer versus Taurus. I will say that. And then back in early 2023, it was at 3 degrees Taurus, the Jupiter and lunar North Node. Very important, because the last time that happened was in 1929. So that being
what
said,
happened in 1929?
Right. And so the Jupiter Uranus conjunction.
Collapse.
What's that?
Sorry, I was like, economic collapse. Did I whisper loud enough? That was when the stock market collapsed in the United States, leading to the Great Depression.
Yes, and that should get some people news about economically. So the Jupiter Uranus conjunctions, in a sense, was what took us out of the Great Depression, because those timelines coincide right as we entered World War II. That was when we got pulled out of the Depression, and it really started getting better after the fact. But I don't necessarily think it's going to be to that extent. I think it's going to be more subtle, and I think it's going to unexpectedly correct, because this is a conjunction that deals a lot with.
You say unexpectedly correct?
Like, it'll seem like, I thought the market already crashed. It's very vague. It's, a lot, the way people talk about it's, I don't know, it's a little more simple than like back then when it was one market that crashed. Today it's a little more expansive and a little more, though it's entangled and it's all interconnected. I'm just saying, like, the market has grown in a way it wasn't back in 1929. So I don't think these things will ever unfold in the exact same way.
Sorry, can I jump in one more time?
Yes.
So if we're looking at historical cycles, I think it's also important. This is where my biggest head scratcher comes in. At least in the United States, there's usually, I think historically it's been reset. Please don't quote me on this one. I could be wrong. But it's at least minor and major recessions every 4 to 8 years, I believe it was. Because like if you look, right, if you look historically, we had one in 2008, 2000, because the dot-com bust was in 2000. Then you had the recession in the late 80s, early 90s. Then, late 70s, early 80s, I believe. And, if you just keep going back, that's where the cycle is. And as we're recording this on November 17th of 2023, it has been 15 years since because I think it could be argued that COVID was that, but if that was it, we sure recovered pretty quickly from that one. So it's like I have other things about that where I just look at it and be like, economically, but that's neither here nor there, because we're talking astrology and this isn't completely, a socioeconomics podcast. But again, it's looking at the patterns. And even though the economy exists because we believe in it. That's it. The economy is an idea. Yes. It is solely an idea. It is our own collective agreement in this system that keeps it alive. But with that said, there still has been natural cycles that have taken place. And that's why when you say, like, I don't know if it happened already, I'm like, I don't know if you're off. That's the thing. Because it just seems like I'm a firm believer that history repeats itself and there is something to patterns. So I wonder, where did the schism take place with the patterns? But I guess that's my way of also saying to everyone, look deeper. It is important to understand history. And granted, I'm probably making a poor argument for right now, because if I would say that, then we would have already experienced this a couple of years ago and be coming up on it again. But it's very important to understand nuance and history.
Yeah.
Because if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Absolutely. Who quoted it? Like, history doesn't repeat, but it sure as hell rhymes. I don't remember who quoted that. And it's a famous author. I'm just having a brain fart at the moment. But yeah, I guess that should reassure some people. And I think one way of looking at that quote is that we do have free will and a certain consciousness to have some control. Not I want to say full control, but we do have an ability to at least rewrite history, or in the least not. I mean, that's what you were saying, but yeah, like that's. And so, what else do we want to know about?
It's kind of like really quick. The reason I brought up the little trip that I took back in February of 2022 was, if I look back at my transit charts throughout my life and I look at those more constrictive, I don't want to say difficult necessarily, or negative Saturn transits, but more constrictive and restrictive, or more restrictive. There's a pattern there. There's a pattern of a slowdown. So I decided to take the bull by the horns in a sense and be proactive and understanding that slowdowns take place, but I'm going to be the one to take this slowdown. Because I then avoided it or ignored it when I had a Saturn going over my ascendant, and I got sick as soon as that happened, and it slowed me down. And that was a year later.
Yeah.
So but I think that's the point where free will comes into play, and that there are energies at play. So with Pluto and Aquarius, yes, there are probably revolutionary energies all around us, but it's up to us as a collective how we decide to proceed. It's not just throwing our hands up in the air and being like, take us now, angels. Maybe we can ask the angels for help and guidance, but ultimately it's up to us how this will look.
And that's kind of what the ultimate role of the astrologer is. I know, like, in today's clout chasing culture, everyone makes it about who's going to make the first prediction, who's going to, but really what astrologers do is they look at these things in real time and they try to actively work it in people's favor. That's literally our number one job. That's why people come to us. They don't come to us just to tell them things. They come to us like, so what do I do about it? Right. And when we look at predictions, a lot of people are like, see, this is going to happen. I told you, I called it. And I'm like, yes, but I think we can use astrology a lot more effectively than that.
Yeah, but I also wonder, did they call it, or are they just parroting something? But that's neither here nor there right now. So that's why understanding the nuances is important if you can back it up. That's a whole other podcast, though. But this is why I wanted to bring NJ on, is because she understands the nuance and she can explain. She could back it up. She could talk about real world events from a historical context. So that's me. I think you're great. So that's okay. I'm gonna shut up now.
I guess I could always generally outline the few other predictions I have, and then from there we can go from there. And if we want to talk any particular, I talked about Donald Trump. If he doesn't get reelected, right, he'll and this goes back to this. I know we are a democracy, so we like to think. I know there's a lot of cynicism around that. And I know there's a lot of our own choices that go into voting, but I do think, because we haven't fully gotten on board yet, which I do think there's going to be a big wave on that front in 2024. That could be part of the revolution, right? Because voter participation rates have been significantly low pretty consistently until about the last decade. And especially during the Trump presidency, that is probably the only silver lining of that presidency, is that people got more civically engaged than they ever have. And that's what my passion was before I got into this when I did education, was, civic reform and just how we engage with one another. And I noticed that was a big theme from that time. I noticed that people, once Trump got in office, because there was something revolutionary about not having the traditional politician. But yeah, so there is a lot of that going here. And I'll get into Trump again, why I think he will be reelected. But I also think if it's an assassination attempt, he might become House Speaker if he's not reelected. Because there's a couple of things I was seeing there with both transits for Newt Gingrich as well as Grover Cleveland. And that's, again, details coming for that in a minute. And where I saw similarities and historical overlap. And then I also think there's going to be at least one vacancy on the Supreme Court, if not two. And I think we all know who that's probably going to be. I will not be surprised if there's at least one or two riots, particularly relating to taxes in the economy, and or it can be race related, but I don't really think it's going to be that as much as it's going to be maybe anti-war, anything of that sort. And then also, I don't think Biden's going to rerun. I think he is going to suddenly either resign or suddenly announce that he is no longer running. And that is going to I think that might contribute to Trump getting office, right? Because and it can be either because of health reason, or I also think it's going to be something relating to a scandal that finally comes about, and just to kind of keep the party clean, he wants to do it ahead of time, right? Decide that he's not going to run anymore. But I do think that's going to catch the public by surprise. I do think there's going to be another symbol. I think it's going to relate something to like another Iran Contra scandal, perhaps. Like there's going to be a lot of messiness on that front. Oh God. And I guess what else do I want to talk about on that?
So
those are some big ones.
When you say Iran Contra scandal, I just want to give everyone a little background on that. From what I remember, the Iran Contra scandal is where we won't get into the specific agencies, but basically we'll call it a bureaucratic arm of the United States government was selling weapons to, was it the Contras in order to, or was it, the Contras in Central America, right? Yeah.
Right.
In order to fund something in Iran, right? Was it the
hostages? So basically they did like an arms deal to trade that in order to get hostages back. And they kept it a secret from the public. And I just thought that was a little uncanny, because out of all the hostages in Israel right now, the main ones who have gotten released are all the American hostages. And so I thought that was a little uncanny, like, oh, why are all the Americans getting released, but all these other countries are struggling to get their hostages out?
But also with Iran Contra, though, the scandal broke years after it happened, right? It was... Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it was Reagan's administration, so
yeah, but it was in the late '80s when it broke. Because I think it happened earlier than that.
And that would also make sense, given Joe Biden has a long political career.
Oh, so you think he actually may have something to do with Iran Contra or something?
Oh,
similar?
No, I think there's going to be another variation, maybe not exact, but I do think it's going to be something relating. And I don't think it's going to be a betrayal necessarily. I think it's going to be just really bad political calls on behalf of the U.S. leadership. And it is already, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I'm almost positive that's how the Iran Contra scandal went. Like they, in exchange for, I think Hezbollah was also involved in that scandal as well, where they pretty much armed them in exchange for getting American lives and hostages back. And when I'm looking at what's going on, again, it's very parallel. And so I will not be surprised if Biden and I'm not making any accusations, let me make that abundantly clear. There's these things are actually already publicly well known, his track record, and it's very questionable, but it's well known, right? So it can also be age related, right? We'll keep it PG, right? Maybe it's age related. He's like, I'm too old for this. I'm over this. I'm going home with my family. I'm too tired for this, right? Like, it could be something as simple as that, but I don't think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be a huge scandal. I think it's going to be something like maybe he just chooses not to rerun to prevent a scandal kind of thing, or like the information gets out, but like no one's surprised. Like everyone kind of suspected that from the beginning, and that's all kind of going to further fuel the tensions of distrust and our distrust towards our government, right? So I think something is going to leak about that, or in the very least, like something's going to come forward about that. Which
transit is that you're basing that off of?
Partly, I know that, North Node and Aries. We've got the North Node and Aries transit. Those are, I have a whole list of all the returns of those happen. Like there's a lot of links to new justices, which I think is very unusual or unusually canny. Let me just put it like that. Actually, the Israel-Palestine conflicts are specifically linked to these nodal transits. Yeah, I have a lot of notes on this I'm looking at right now. But yeah, NATO was also formed under this North Node transit back in 1949. A lot of gay rights cases were also discussed, and I've been telling people that I don't think the Roe versus Wade is going to last forever, or that there's going to be a lot of loopholes that make it basically ineffective, or there's going to be a lot of Supreme Court reform. And it sounds too good to be true, but I mean by reform, I mean like not only just the ethics committee they launched, but they're going to fundamentally change the roles and responsibilities and the powers of the Supreme Court, where it's kind of, and I would be surprised if it becomes voter based, for example, where people get to vote for their justices. So those types of major political and legislative changes are very likely. Again, I could go into a lot of detail.
It's like I'm hesitant to ask because I know this is more of a spiritual podcast, but I'm just curious how you see that becoming a reality in the system that we have in the United States. Are you basing that off of a Supreme Court overhaul? Is that based off of astrological transits, or is that more intuition based that you were referring to earlier?
It's like a bit of both. And I saw major, let me see. We'll get to that more in a minute. But no, North Node in Aries I know is a big one, so much that I have a whole little piece of paper that outlines the years and the very specific distinctions and commonalities. And I think that's a big one there. And also with the what was it that I saw with Biden in the which president was it that suddenly resigned or chose? Oh, which president was it? LB Johnson. That's who I'm thinking of. So the last time his presidency, I know it was something related to LBJ. He's the only president who just announced that he wasn't going to now run for a second term.
Yeah, 1968.
And so, and I think, what year was it? I think it was like 1967. And I linked part of these. Okay, perfect. Because I know it was, a lot of these are overlapping with the Venus retrograde cycle in Leo. It's because that also goes hand with the similar timing of the North Node in Aries. So a lot of that I've also looked at as well. So it's not just North Node Aries is part of it. And then when we look at bigger things, which is, I don't think World War II or III, excuse me, is just some fated conflict. Global conflict's imminent. Like, just read, like, it is. I don't see that necessarily getting better, but I don't think it's going to happen in the way people have in like the public imagination and historical imagination and all that. So I don't think it's going to be like that. North Node in Aries is linked to riots, and I think about Pluto and Aquarius. There were a lot of riots, particularly with taxes and representation. I think one thing I was looking at. Do not count me on this. I need to double check because my notes are a little bit messy right now, but I'll have a lot of information on that. The Venus-Mars conjunction, I want to say. And we have that happening in February of this 2024. February, and that was the same conjunction that Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine. So I do think February 2024, we are going to have something go the fuck down from February to April. And again, maybe Trump gets assassinated before that. And I'm not wishing it. I'm saying that I think it was you that I was talking about this one point where it's just a lot of uncanniness of, whether it's a Simpson prediction, those are not reliable. Please do not count me on that. But there's a lot of uncanny parallels that kind of intuitively brought me to that. Because I usually refrain from going that route. Because, a lot of people said it was going to be Joe Biden because of did we ever talk about the 20-year curse? That people speculate?
I don't think we have, but it's where every 20 years in the United States, the president, there was at least an assassination attempt. Because if you look at 1980, well, Reagan, he won in 80, but I believe the attempt was in 81. Kennedy won in 60. The attempt was the assassination was in 63. It was Roosevelt before then. Was there an attempt on Roosevelt?
Which Franklin Roosevelt?
Yeah.
Oh, it's that they either face an assassination attempt or they die in office. So he died of a heart attack in office.
He died, yeah. But then you wonder with George W. Bush that he was 2000, but nothing happened, or at least nothing we were aware of. And I don't know if
he had the. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, and I don't know if it was 1920, but maybe it was in 1900. I can't remember who the president was, but I believe he was assassinated.
William McKinley.
Was it McKinley was assassinated?
1904, maybe 1904.
And he won in 1900?
Like the 1900, yeah. Like he served part of his term and then ended up getting assassinated in office.
And I can't remember who it was in 1880, but in 1860 it was Lincoln who won and was assassinated in 1865. Yeah. So what were you going to say about Bush?
Actually, an attempted assassination. He was lucky. I don't know if Daddy Bush was looking over him or what, but
Daddy Bush was still alive at the time.
Oh, was he really? No, 2005?
Yeah.
Was he alive in 2005? Are you really?
Yeah. Yeah, he
died recently. His other ancestors was looking over him. Let's just put it like that. I'm just going to believe in that. Because the grenade got thrown at him and he just didn't detonate. He was just like, well, there's that.
Well, he got a shoe thrown at him also. So, does that count?
Yeah. I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe assassination of the ego. Like, boo, get your shoe thrown at you and you're like,
he ducked that one too.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, no, never mind. Forget what I said then. Look at you, Georgie. But yeah, which I think 2005 was actually when the North Node was also in Aries, 2004, 2005. But regardless, I'm like, dang. Oh, 2000. It entered it in December 2004, which means it was in May 2005 is when that attempt happened. But yeah, back to Trump. I just always thought it was uncanny that Trump, compared himself to Lincoln, to Reagan. And so I just started looking at some overlays there. And his birth chart, I can't really show that to y'all because this is a podcast, but he has similar, like, so him and I believe it was Lincoln. I don't know if it's the North Node or Uranus. It was in the upper part of their chart. I can't remember if it was like maybe Lincoln had Sun. I've got to double check, but regardless, the Uranus and the North Node were very intimate linked. And when they had, what was it? What else happened?
I think you were telling me Jupiter earlier. That Jupiter played a part in it.
I want to say it was, yes. And I want to say also, Mars retrograde in Gemini was a big one. That's right. I've been looking at that for such a long time, the patterns of Mars retrograde in Gemini. And I noticed that there was a pattern between, about a year or two before, because Mars retrograde happens about every 2 years, I believe. Gemini was very close, like Cancer into Gemini. But regardless, that we had that happen back in 2022, late 2022, so going into 2023. And then we're going to have a Mars retrograde in Leo. And I've noticed the Mars retrograde in Leo is more linked to events in Asia, like coups and Chinese invasions, all that stuff. That's a whole other topic, and that's late 2024. But in the U.S., Mars retrograde Gemini, I kind of put that link. Lincoln and Trump have more in common than Reagan does. And so that's why I thought it was a little weird that he kind of...
You mean in their charts?
I'm actually... I can text,
because I think this is also one of those important. Well, one, I believe that every American president should understand history, not just America. I believe that every world leader should understand history, because if he understood history, he wouldn't be comparing himself to Lincoln. So,
okay. So Abraham Lincoln actually has a Uranus North Node conjunction in Scorpio, and at the top of this chart, it's technically his 9th house, but it's not far from his MC. And he has Mars in Libra, not exactly conjunct, but it is in the final degrees of Libra. And so I was like, okay, that's what I've ever seen. So for Trump, it's the sun. And I believe, I think he has a Uranus in Gemini too. So the fact that those things are very uncanny, just having that, because Uranus is all about surprises. And sometimes it's very abrupt, brutal surprises. And sometimes it's very lighthearted and annoying, but in some cases it had, like, for example, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction is often linked with surprise attacks. Again, the last one was Pearl Harbor. That happened in Taurus, and that happened in December, or the conjunction was in May.
What was in Taurus?
The Jupiter-Uranus conjunction last happened in 1942, and so if that's happening here in April 2024.
Mm-hmm.
So that...
Wait, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in Taurus.
Yes.
Okay.
That is all happening there. So that, and I've been looking at these transits for the last couple of years, because I have been looking at 2024 for such a long time. So there's a couple things I just haven't necessarily written down that I just kind of remember. So excuse me if a couple details are flawed. But
can I say one thing really quick just to finish out the thought with Trump comparing himself to Lincoln? Politics aside, I think modern day Republicans who compare themselves to Lincoln and the party of the Republicans of the 1860s, their heads would be spinning if they actually read a history book and understood what the Republicans stood for back then. And that it was the Democrats that were the more conservative ones and the Republicans were the liberals. There was a shift that happened, at a certain point around, I believe it was the late 1800s, early 1900s when that shift happened. That's still why history is important. So that's why when you were saying that a sudden shift could happen, I'm like, you mean Trump's going to become a liberal?
I don't know if you know the story about, like, who was it? The Tecumseh and the Native American curse, and they're the ones who predicted the New Madrid earthquakes. And then after that fact, after the happened in the 1811s, but then that history and those conflicts kind of carried on. So by the 1840s, like, apparently a chief, what was it? Tecumseh was part of the Shawnee tribe, if I'm not mistaken. And like, they eventually like they say that was Tecumseh's curse, but we didn't really see people question that just because it was, like a couple few decades after the fact. But it, again, those things over time, that's just a mystery, but it's fun talking about.
I don't understand plate tectonics that much or whatnot, but I mean, the New Madrid quake was the big ass one that was was it Missouri or Arkansas? Or somewhere in that.
Yes, I live on the New Madrid Fault.
Right, but it was big, like in a region that doesn't typically have earthquakes frequently or big ones at least, but that was a big ass
Oh
one, right?
man. Speak yeah, no, yeah, like it's super, super, super rare. And I have done the astrology on that too. And I'm very
It was like
concerned
over
about
a
another.
7 if I remember correctly, right? Over
Oh,
7.
it was so big that there was like a
Did
called the
the
alluvial tsunami from the
and
Mississippi
the
River, like just a
Mississippi shifted
tsunami.
or something, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
temporarily it shifted backwards and eventually went back to normal, but just the fact it was that powerful where it temporarily lost its natural direction. But yeah, there was a lot of
That's why it's
going on in
important to
this.
look these things up, history books, because if you heard New Madrid, not you, NJ, but just I think people in general, be like, wait, there was an earthquake in Spain. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
Madrid. Yeah. No, not the famous tourist hotspot. New Madrid is literally like so tiny, and it's just that's just the general way that the New Madrid seismic zone. But it goes through Memphis, which is where I'm from and I live, and it goes up through just the general Tennessee region, part of Appalachia, but more particularly like where just the river's at. And I think the Delta, Mississippi Delta, felt it back during that time. But yeah, I live right in the region where that is, and I've been trying to figure. And I'm actually worried, and I don't think it'll be as bad as the one back then. But I do think that there is going to be some type of major event in that regard, whether it's New Madrid Zone or it's just like, now Tornado Valley is basically shifting out to what they call Dixie. I mean, I don't really want to use that term, but that's just what they call it. It could be that too. So it doesn't have to be an earthquake. It could be just something that we've never dealt with before.
so I have a question with regards because I this is something I've been seeing for many years with regards to earthquakes and Uranus being in Taurus. Do you
Mm-hmm.
use astrocartography to pinpoint where you think it's going to be, or is it
I did at
simply just
first.
okay? And
I
astrocartography, for those who aren't aware, is using. Actually, you know what? I'm going to let NJ explain. Can you just talk about astrocartography a little bit?
Yeah, so astrocartography, it's where you pretty much plot lines on a geographical map. And fun fact, guys, this is actually a Polynesian concept. That's where the Cook explorers and such discovered this. There's something called astronomical latitude. This is actually what I use. And so astrocartography pretty much reflects this idea, like, yeah, obviously where the planets are positioned, it has it's similar to planets. It ascends, descends, and then pretty much all it does is it puts it on a visual on a map, right? It's a pretty ancient invention, but yeah, no, the way I have learned to start predicting earthquakes, even though I'm still getting better at it, is these astronomical latitude. So it's like basically like it requires astrocartography to an extent, or not requires, it's useful to an extent. But every place on the planet has their own quote ruling star. And so once I discovered that was a Polynesian concept, I started looking more into it. And so I found out that basically almost to an exact degree, maybe it wasn't always Uranus and Taurus, for example, but in Turkey, for example, that was the first earthquake I had ever predicted accurately, the one really devastating one that happened last year in August. But what allowed me to pinpoint, because astrocartography, it's a little more vague in the sense that the lines are in quite a few places, but I'm learning that the zenith star method is a lot more effective because every place has an astronomical latitude, a star that can represent that. And so there's a lot of varying factors that go into it. But I do think, Uranus is a big key player. So New Madrid, for example, it happens every time Uranus is in Scorpio or anytime the nodes are in like Virgo and Pisces. And I will say that when you get into the USA, the zenith stars start getting into Scorpio down to Sagittarius to Capricorn. So that is another interesting fact there. There's a lot that goes into that, but point is that there is a lot of speculation, just and also a lot of intuitive punches, a lot of people who speculate on it too. I just wanted to bring that up because I was like, that would be utterly batshit if it actually happened. Oh my God. That would not be fun. I know the US has, if it's not in a surprise attack next year, it's a good thing to mention. It could be a natural disaster, a very unexpected, what the hell? Like, we get those things happen.
Well,
Like,
like you expect a hurricane in Florida, but you don't necessarily expect an earthquake in Tennessee, like
right.
that type
Like,
of thing.
right. Like, and even in New York, for example, how there's been hurricanes hitting New York or like, what is it? Nor'easters, I think is the technical term for it.
Mm-hmm.
But like once, I think only like one time it's actually gotten hurricane intensity and it really fucked up the area. That was like forever ago. But yeah, so I do think there's going to be some type of surprises in store for us on that front. So that's going to be something worth noting. And I'm going to do more research on that because 2024, again, this has been a year I have been eyeing for a very long time. Like since like 2017, I've been just looking at 2024's astrology. Like I was a lot more amateur at the time, but as I get older and more seasoned, if you will, I'm starting to see that, man, 2024 really is that year. It's a lot is going to, I mean, 2020 was that, like I heard an astrologer say it best. They said 2020 represented when the world changed their language from before 2020 to after 2020. That was kind of our reference point. Oh, well, before 2020, that's how the world was. Well, after 2020, the world's a different place, right? Well, 2024 is like now it's a different place. So what are you going to do about it? And that's when the chaos really happens, because when people are vying for power, they're vying for that influence and those resources.
Fellow time travelers, your journey through time awaits you. Just want to thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. And if you're interested in discovering who, when, and where you have been throughout time, and you'd like to book a session with me, just go ahead and send me a message on Instagram at The Past Life Regressionist, or you can reach me through my website, yourpastliferegressionist.com.
Hey, time traveler. Are you trying to learn your birth chart and you're struggling through all those confusing layers of signs, houses, planets, degrees, aspects? I have a 4-level self-paced course that makes this process so much clearer. Hi, I'm Danny. I'm that witch next door. I'm an instructor and mentor for folks like you that are trying to learn all of this trendy new astrological information for themselves and their own lives. Each level of my course is specifically designed to dive deep into the chart and help make sense of all those different parts and pieces. I developed this course to directly improve all the problems that I personally encountered on my journey to learning my own birth chart so that you don't have to. All of the information is presented in a way that is digestible and set up to promote the most effective retention and set you up for real success. By the end of our last level, you'll be ready to practice interpreting the transits and the aspects for yourself. You can visit thatwitchnextdoor.com/astrology for more information and to order yours today. You can also use code Time to Learn for a 10% discount off of your bundle today. This is my way of saying thank you so much for being part of the Timeless Spirituality community. I enjoy working with all of you so much that listen to me over on That Witch podcast. So don't forget, if you're struggling to learn your birth chart, you want to finally make sense of all of this, visit thatwitchnextdoor.com/astrology and use code Time to Learn for 10% off at checkout. Thank you so much, time traveler. Thank you, Daniel, the past life regressionist, and I'll see you all in class.